do. Let me say a little bit about it here in the United States, and then my time is about up. One way to think about church history is to say that the Christian faith started as a completely non-hierarchical, non-institutional movement across the Mediterranean world of the first century. And then it developed local structures, and then it developed regional structures, and then it developed cross-regional structures, and finally it developed sort of, for the world of the day, global structures. And then what happened is once those global structures were developed, they tended to get rid of the grassroots structures. So all was left is what we would call an institution. And you might say that what happened after the Protestant Reformation is that the church started re-diversifying again and recreating cross-regional and regional and local structures that would facilitate things all the way back down to the grassroots. So instead of thinking about the Protestant Reformation as as division, you could think of it as a re-diversification of forms for the church. Does that make sense? I think part of what's going on now is we're in an interesting new era of acknowledging the diversification of the church. We have the Eastern Orthodox Communion and the Roman Catholic Church, and then we've got this sort of European national colonial churches, Presbyterians and Anglicans and so on. And we've got the more grassroots and local denominations and so on, some of which have an international reach, that maybe we say the disciples would fit in that category. And then we have all of these little grassroots churches with no denominational connection at all. Well, here's what I think is very exciting. What is emerging, I think now, is not just a proliferation of new grassroots things, although that is a very important thing that's happening. I think what's happening is a realization that the Spirit of God is working at each of those levels. Does that make sense? It's not saying only down here is vital and anything up here is stuffy, and it's not saying only something up here is legitimate and anything down here is profane and vulgar, but it's saying the Holy Spirit has lower standards than we do for who will be blessed. The Holy Spirit blesses people who do church in ways that we do not consider legitimate. If we were the Holy Spirit, we wouldn't bless it. But since the Holy Spirit is doing it, we have to get along with it and follow it. And when that happens, then you can have disciples of Christ and a Catholic bishop and a Methodist district superintendent, district person. And you can have somebody leading a church in a bar, and another person leading a church in a coffee shop, and a house church over here, and a group of people who meet once a month under a tree. You can have all of these people start to look at each other and say, what you're doing counts. It's legitimate, and we're all part of this shared mission together. So from